Well, a cheap hype beast from the past. You may be thinking to yourself, Ross, why are you doing a review on this fragrance so many years after? It's kind of its heyday is behind it. And I get that, and it's one that I sprayed on the other night and realized, though I've mentioned in a few videos over the years, I've never really gone into detail on what I really think about fragrances like Mont Blanc Individuel, which prices have seemed to have risen from the days of finding it for around 20 bucks. Now the cheapest I've seen it recently is in the $35 to $40 range. So with prices going up, is it still worth it to this day? At the recording of this, we're almost midway through 2022. This is a rebuy. This is my second bottle I've ever had of this. I want to break it down for you on what I actually think, if it's even worth bothering to get these days. Is it an absolute must, or should you just let it pass? Let's discuss it. Stay tuned. So I don't have the box for this one. I've had this bottle for a while, but this is a 50 ml that I picked up at, I want to say it was a Ross Dress for Less. It might have been a Marshall's. I know it was in Biloxi, Mississippi when I rebought this fragrance, but has this very slim and sleek design. Mont Blanc logo on top of the cap. Cap does hold into place. Like I said, very thin, slim, and sleek, and I mean, holds strong into place. And the atomizer actually puts out pretty well. But let's discuss this scent. So I have the notes on screen, and it's a crazy complex note breakdown. At its most simplest form, yes, it is raspberry dominant. If you've heard of this fragrance prior, you know, if you're newer to this hobby and so on, it's dominated by raspberry and lavender at the top. I get a lot of it. This warm, spicy feeling is there right in the background, but it still has that fruity pop of raspberry and that soapy, clean, aromatic feel of lavender. Almost a creamy, soapy, clean type of feel the way this lavender is done. So you're going to get this raspberry for quite a while. It shows in the base of the notes, but you get it up top. And I kind of get it the whole way through for the most part. It never completely fades away, but it's all about this sweet, fruity appeal at the top. Aromatic, bright, a little soapy, creamy, very clean at the same time, and a little warm and spicy. As it starts to settle in, that warm spice comes in even more. You start to get a little bit more of a change of pace for the sweetness. It's got a little bit of a gourmandy kind of candy chocolate feel. I believe there's some dark chocolate in there, but you never really get a big heavy hit of it. It's kind of a little faint nuance that shows up sporadically. Sometimes I smell it, sometimes I don't when I wear this fragrance. And it's not so much in the top note. It's as it settles in, maybe 30 minutes and beyond. For a little while, I may get subtle hints of it from time to time. There's a little bit of herbs here, there's a little bit of florals, but nothing really stands out because there's so many notes, and the way it's blended, and it's a little bit more on the synthetic side, that it's more about accords than it is about picking out specific notes, at least for me in particular. And like I said at the top, it's fruity, it's sweet, it's fresh, it's aromatic, it's soapy, it's warm and spicy, it gets a little gourmand sweet, and then it really starts to become more of a creamy wood scent in its dry down. And once it gets to that stage, that's pretty much what I get the rest of the way through the rest of the life of the fragrance. It becomes a creamy wood fragrance with the slightest and most faint resemblance to that raspberry note that was found at the top. I do get a little hint of it in the background most of the way through. Like I said, for being a fruit of some sort, it kind of stays through the entire life of the fragrance for me. While the note breakdown looks complex, the fragrance, in my opinion, is not a complex fragrance. While not exactly the same in the opening as it is at the very end of the lifespan, there's subtle changes, but it's definitely not linear, but it's, like I said, not a complex fragrance either. It does smell rather nice. I do enjoy this one. I know it can be kind of a polarizing fragrance because in years past, this was very hyped up and could be found very cheap. And on a budget, it's still a decent fragrance. But what it comes down to is price in the value per ml. And here, with prices starting to rise, I feel like it's still worthy for the scent, just the scent alone before we even discuss performance, in the $35 to $40 range. It's once it starts to get higher than that, I think that kind of changes the game. But the scent alone, the scent smells really good. Not super good, not very good, not amazing. Oh my God, I've never smelled anything so good in my life. It's not that kind of good, but it's pretty good. You could do a lot worse. There's a lot worse fragrances out there in the sub $40 price point. Now let's discuss performance. So this one's an interesting one. Longevity on it is actually pretty good. Not a beast, not super long lasting. It's in that 5 to 7 hour range every time I wear it out of this particular bottle. I had an even older bottle, even further, the previous bottle was like 8, 9 years old at the recording of this. And it was another 50 ml like this, and once I got through it, I kind of had a year to 2 years between that bottle and this bottle, and when I came across it for 20 bucks, I scooped it up again. Admittedly, not one I wear that often, but I have spent a ton of time with this in the past. And even out of this bottle, I've had several wearings over the last few years of it, but not so many that I've put a massive dent. I mean, a little bit of a dent in it. But I have so many fragrances, it kind of goes to the wayside. But that's not the point. The performance, like I said, longevity 5 to 7 hours. Some may deem that just too weak. And look, in the affordable price bracket, that's actually really good performance. If you can get 5 to 7 hours on your skin, that's most work days, not all work days that work 12-hour shifts and stuff. Obviously, I understand that. It's not a beast in longevity. It's not really a beast in projection, but it is slightly average to above average type of performance across the board. Because projection, I kind of get a similar thing where it's kind of a little bit, it reaches a little bit past arm's length in the first hour to hour and a half, then admittedly gets much more calm and subdued and closer to the skin, with the sillage being on the moderate to mild side, where it's not a heavy, strong trail. You don't have a real dense scent cloud and bubble around you. Your trail's not going to be super strong, but there is something there that doesn't leave too much to be desired. Like I said, if you're looking for a monster in performance, look elsewhere. This ain't the fragrance for that. But what it does is, like I said, the scent profile has a little bit of uniqueness to it for being a very versatile, clean fragrance. But at the same time, it's got solid performance. Like I said, not really weak, not really strong. It kind of falls somewhere in between that leans a little bit stronger than it does weak. And I think that's kind of what most people are looking for. Not everybody. There's people that have to have a beast no matter what. I understand that. That's just personal preference for some, but for me, this kind of falls into my personal wheelhouse of the 6 to 8 hour range is the sweet spot for me in longevity, and that average-ish arm's length type of reach, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit less, kind of falls into the type of projection I prefer as well. I don't need every fragrance I have to scream, look at me, I'm here, do you smell me? Don't get me wrong, I have plenty of fragrances back there that do that, but this one kind of fills not necessarily a void, but more of a need. Because I like the more pronounced but not too in-your-face type of performing fragrances. And this is exactly that. Like I said, average to slightly above average across the board, except in sillage. Sillage is kind of average to slightly below average. That's why I say moderate to mild. Not a real strong trail and scent bubble, but detectable and noticeable for several hours. Overall, I think if you've had this in the past, it's not a big rebuy. At the time, it seemed like when several hundred fragrances ago, it seemed like a good rebuy for me. Today, let's say I had went through this bottle, I don't think I would be looking to rebuy it for a third bottle. I don't. It doesn't captivate me the way it once did, because I just have so many better fragrances out there. Now, if you're early in this journey, you're early and young to this hobby, not young in age, but young to the hobby, you're just starting to build a collection, you're looking for something versatile that doesn't smell like maybe everything you smelled before, because when it comes to fragrance counters at department stores, they're typically not going to push a fragrance like this. They're pushing your Chanel's, your Dior's, your Ralph Lauren's, and so on. So something like this would be a great spot to start to really add a little bit of character and versatility and maybe something a little bit different to your budding collection, I guess is what we'll say. So yeah, I think it's good in those instances, but enthusiasts, guys that have been into this hobby for a little while, myself specifically, I don't think I would rebuy it at this point. I think as the prices are continuing to grow, I think it's a pass at this stage. But if you have a bottle, obviously it's one you can definitely enjoy. I still think it smells really good. And like I said, the performance is right in the sweet spot for what I enjoy in most daily wear fragrances. Speaking of daily wear, it is a daily wear. I think it does just as fine in the summer as it does in the winter. This is an everyday scent. This is a great office type of scent. Like I said, it's got a little bit of character to it without being very complex, and it's not a super simple smell either, and it doesn't smell like everything else. I know there's the comparisons to Youp Homme, which Youp Homme's a much more terrible fragrance than this in my opinion. Sorry to those of you that like Youp Homme, that's just my opinion. And I've heard the comparisons to Creed Original Santal. Creed Original Santal is a much higher quality fragrance than this. This kind of falls somewhere in between those, where it's a good fragrance to even a very good fragrance, but not a great fragrance. Overall numbers on this one, I'm saying, is every bit of a 6.5 out of 10, to where it's better than good, but not quite very good or great. Again, that's Mont Blanc Individuel. Well, that's my thoughts and feelings on Mont Blanc Individuel. And until next time, do me a real quick favor, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. I do appreciate all the feedback, and I love hearing from you guys. This is nothing new. This came out back in 2003. I mean, it's been around with the recording of this for 19 years, you know. What do you think about it? Have you tried it? Have you had a bottle in the past, or are you newer to this and you're just looking for some good information? Potential, you know, my opinion, for example, if you trust my opinion anyways, on a fragrance like this. Like I said, early in your journey, I think it's a great addition. I think it's a great fragrance to start this hobby with. Early in the hobby, yeah, it's a good fragrance. Been in it for a while, when your bottle runs out, not really a rebuy at this stage. That's what I'm looking at. I've rebought it in the past. But with so much great stuff coming out on a yearly basis, I think it falls to the wayside at this point. And until next time, I will say, if you get your hands on Individuel and you give it a spray now, who knows? You might end up thanking me later. Have a good one, guys.